I'm pretty sure it is 181. This is Armchair Producers, and we are the premium people to go to for Armchair Background Noise. That's right. We do it better than anyone else. We are joined, as always, by the Weyland-Yutani Corporation inspired, protected, and endorsed Mr. Travis Croft. How are you, sir?
I'm well. We're building better worlds. Is really what we're doing at the Weyland-Yutani.
That is the important thing to do, and it's somewhat fitting that you're doing that, considering the first teaser for the Alien TV show that's coming.
I have not seen it.
It's literally just a facehugger holding a clapperboard. That's it. On like a set that looks straight out of LV42 or LV421.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Well, look. I mean, Alien as a series is dead. So
it is, but that won't keep a good thing down, unfortunately.
No, I guess not. But I remember after you and I, what was the last one? Was it Requiem?
Yeah, Alien Requiem, and they had. Oh no, it wasn't. That was. There was Alien Requiem, but there were the Predator.
No, that was Alien versus Predator. Whatever the last Alien thing was.
Alien on its own was Alien Requiem, I think.
Covenant.
That's right, because there were the Ridley Scott prequel ones, Prometheus and Covenant. That's right.
Yeah. But less said about them, the better. Oh goodness me! You can. I noticed the other day they've done a reboot of Doogie Howser on the Disney Plus channel.
Yeah, I saw that.
We really are short of ideas these days, aren't we?
Yeah, they really are.
And I don't know how much brand recognition and love there is in the Doogie Howser brand. You know what I mean? Like, okay, look, Terminator, Alien. A lot of people love those series.
Yeah.
Doogie Howser.
Well, look, frankly, if it missed its first opportunity, why not wait a few years and just try again? Because you know what? The definition of insanity is not doing the same thing again and expecting different results. It's whatever.
I mean, I always say we missed the mark. How many seasons do you reckon there were of the original? Just out of interest, have a guess.
Of Doogie Howser?
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea, because I don't think I've ever actually watched a single episode.
Well, there were 4.
4? Wow.
4
okay. Because that was what's his face?
Neil Patrick Harris.
That's the one. Yeah.
So not only are we your premium source of Armchair Background Noise, we are your premium source of Doogie Howser chat in 2023, a lazy 24 years after it first aired. 34, sorry. But I think we have more interesting things to talk about this week, right?
Yeah. We've got a few. We've got our chain movie of the week, which was following on from last week's Monkey Bone, which was my pick, the Henry Selick mishmash combination with Brendan Fraser in the lead, to the respected Do the Right Thing, directed by Spike Lee, with a couple of connections to Monkey Bone. Which one was it in particular that you were using?
I went with John Turturro. So
John Turturro, that's right.
That leaves Giancarlo Esposito, who was also in Monkey Bone. Free and clear for anyone to pick if that's the way you've chosen to go to whatever's next. We're going to talk about the Netflix film The Swimmers.
Yes.
Apparently had a 4-minute standing ovation at Cannes, or wherever the fuck it was at premiere. And the third film, what was the third film again this week?
It was Ghosted, the new AppleTV, Chris Evans, Ana de Armas
spy rom-com.
Spy rom-com, yes. And of course, we will have the usual binge, browse, and burn.
Do you want to start at the beginning? Start at the beginning. The beginning began when?
Yes.
Talk about doing the right thing.
Let's do the right thing.
So I couldn't remember if I'd seen this before, but I remember while I was watching it that I had. But that was a lazy 27 years ago, believe it or not.
Oh, you slacker.
One of my when I studied cinema studies back in the mid-90s at uni, we watched this, and so I'm suddenly remembering at the end, does someone throw a rubbish bin through a window? They do throw a rubbish bin through the window.
They do indeed.
So, for those who aren't uninitiated, this is one of Spike Jonze's earlier films. It's not his first feature. I think it might be his third.
Yes,
On the hottest day of the year, on a street in the Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn, everybody's hate and bigotry smolders and builds until it explodes into violence. Written and directed by the great Spike Lee.
And
starring as well. Danny Aiello is our headline star. Ossie Davis, Ruby Dee, Giancarlo Esposito, as you mentioned earlier, John Turturro, Frankie Faison, Samuel L. Jackson's in here, Rosie Perez, who went on to bigger and better things. This was her breakout role.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
What a film! I mean, I am blowing my own trumpet because I picked it. But in fairness, it's been 27 years since I'd seen it, so I'd forgotten a lot of what happens in this film. And this is breathtaking filmmaking for me, even 34 years after it came out. This is still, I think, Spike's best joint to date. But I think you went in completely uninitiated, right?
Yeah, no, I did see it. It was part of theatre studies and the film subsection that I did. I gotta say, I remember watching it vaguely and thinking, okay, this is a film, and I still think those sentiments.
So I'm going to take that as you didn't really dig it then.
Not really. I mean, it doesn't. I don't entirely understand what it's trying to do, especially at the end when you've got the two quotes from Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and they're kind of walking along similar lines, but from different points of view, and they don't quite. They're confrontational, I suppose, would be a way of describing those two kind of philosophies of those two great men. And I kind of don't really know what the point is of the movie.
That's interesting. I guess maybe some context here. I'm being generous because needless to say, I tip my hand. I loved this. I think this is amazing. I think this is breathtaking, as I said, simply breathtaking filmmaking from someone on their third feature. I think his point or his commentary about race relations in the United States in 1989 is so on point that this film to me still feels largely fresh and important and vital. 3 decades later, do we need to save a spoiler warning for a 34-year-old film?
I am not putting spoiler warning up for this movie because it has been inducted into so much education that if you are interested in movies, you will probably have had some connection to this, and it's well past it. It's well past.
I think you're right. So to give a little context, the film looks at a day in the life in the Bedford-Stuyvesant district of Brooklyn on a hot summer Sunday. As he does every day, Sal Fragione, played by Danny Aiello, opens a pizza parlor he's owned for 25 years. The neighborhood has changed considerably in the time he's been there. He's now composed primarily of African Americans and Hispanics. His son, Pino, played by John Turturro, hates it and would like nothing better than to relocate the eatery to their own neighborhood. For Sal, however, a restaurant represents something that is part of his life, and he sees it as part of the community. What begins as a simple complaint by one of his customers bugging out, played by Giancarlo Esposito, unrecognizable. I had to point that out to Michelle, going, "Do you know who that is?"
Yeah.
Who wonders why he has only got pictures of famous Italian Americans on the wall, when most of his customers are black, eventually disintegrates into violence as frustration seemingly brings out the worst in everyone. That's a nice little synopsis. There's obviously other stuff going on around that. One of the parts of the film I think is just most incredible is the riot scene. So all this anger and hatred, there's blows up into a full-blown riot towards the end of the film when Radio Raheem's boombox is destroyed in the pizzeria by Sal. Radio Raheem, played by very recognizable, but probably not the name you recognize, Bill Nunn.
Yeah.
But you'll go, I've seen that guy in stuff.
Yeah, he's kind of everything. He was
in the Spider-Man films.
Yeah, he was one of the first people to understand. Yeah, Peter Parker, Spider-Man. Come on, spoilers.
So his whole Radio Raheem walks around with this giant boombox, and you can sort of, the film really nicely displays how this thing is his pride and joy. And for those of us who are old enough to remember when carrying, like, I never did carry a boombox because, I don't think I could have pulled that off. But the D-size batteries. At one point, he's buying 12 D-size batteries. How expensive that was and how little time actually lasted. But so his radio is destroyed in the process of this argument in the pizza shop, which blows up into this huge riot where the pizza shop is trashed, destroyed, and burnt down. When the police turn up, in restraining Radio Raheem, they strangled him to death. Yeah. And the echoes of that 30 years later and what happened in the George Floyd incident is mind-boggling. This is 1989. Spike Lee's making his film. And in 2020, the American police are still killing people, whilst restraining them. And I thought that was insanely prescient of a filmmaker who was very young at the time. And it sort of echoes and those sort of comments that you still see it relevant today. You could make this film today. You could release it at the cinema now, and other than maybe the fashion choices and some of the dancing, I think in the opening sequence, it would still be every bit as relevant as it was in 1989. How old was Spike when this came out? I'm just checking now. 1957. So he was 30. Yeah. Still a young man. And I think it's those sort of things that for me really stand out. The other part where we have the other element of a neighborhood is a grocery store run by a Korean couple, and the resentment felt by the African Americans in the neighborhood towards the newcomers. So the new newcomers are these Korean Americans who are now resented by the established people in the neighborhood, being the African Americans. And during the riot, there's a point where some of the African American locals are actually going to trash the Korean-run grocery store, only to be defended and sort of convinced to do otherwise by the owner of the store by telling him, I'm like you. The other thing, what this got me thinking is this is 3 years or so, I think 2 or 3 years before the infamous LA riots, set off by the trial of Rodney King trials. Yeah. And folks who don't know, if you're not old enough to remember, that one of the things that happened during those riots is a lot of Korean American businesses were attacked by rioters because they saw those Korean immigrants running those stores and being as profiteering off the African American community, as taking advantage of it or taking opportunities away. And there's famous footage you can find online of Korean American business owners staking out their businesses with shotguns and on the roof of their shops with guns and stuff, defending their businesses because the police wouldn't do it. Again, I guess it's maybe standard to expect an African American director to tell a story about race relations, to talk about white-black race relations, but the skill involved to invent and the intelligence to then go, this is this continues on. This is not just between these two groups. He also shows the tensions between the Latino and the African American community, and then between those communities and the Korean community. I think it's a really intelligently done part of the film for me. The writing in that section was incredible. That he saw this coming. It's years ahead of when If you made this after the LA riots, you can say, well, okay, well, you're just reflecting reality. But in this case, he was years ahead of, I think, maybe what everybody else was in terms of seeing where this was going in terms of race relations. I'm sorry, I'm talking way too much.
No,
here.
that's all right. You're fine. I think my problem with it is that aside from Demare, I think pretty much everyone in this movie is trash. They're just shit people. Every single bloody one of them. No one is. It takes a little while before you go, oh, it's a weekend for one thing. It doesn't kind of set it. For a while, I was thinking, what, does no one go to work? What's going on here? And then like the character of Mookie is like, okay, you're the vehicle that's getting us from A to B to C through this narrative, but you're not really helping yourself. You are purposefully not doing your job, and you're going home and having showers, and you're taking fucking forever. I can understand, as someone who's worked in retail, I understand what it's like to have a worker who doesn't fucking work. And so it doesn't present him as someone sort of like, oh no, he's trying hard, he's doing.
Don't destroy the studio, please, George. Keep your temper under control.
And so like none apart from Demare, who's the only one trying to sort of like keep level heads, and he's the one who says the title of the movie of "Do the Right Thing," and it's so lazily thrown away by Mookie. Is sort of like, "Do the right thing." Yep, that's it. Got it. Bye. And how that kind of culminates, and the looseness of whether or not Mookie is doing the right thing or he's not doing the right thing, or however you interpret that, is like, okay. And every single person that Demare has engagement with throughout the movie chides him for being a drunkard, but he's actually the only one who's trying to do something for the community in a good way. He saves a kid's life. He tries to help out mother sister and things like that. He's trying to be the voice of reason amidst a cloud of oppressive heat and hate and alcoholism. And no one is out there actively trying to seemingly better themselves or even just do anything for fun. Like Radio Raheem, yeah, it's his pride and joy that he's going around, but he is purposefully obnoxious about his music. Purposefully obnoxious. And it's like, okay, you know what? I appreciate someone who wants to respect their, express their passion and their love. But at the same time, you don't have to be a dick about it. And especially the fact that the first culprit of the riots is the boombox. It's like, I would probably do that as well if I was in Sal's shoes, because I've told you, I've asked you nicely, repeatedly, as it's suggested in it. Like, you know what? Come on. It doesn't take it doesn't take anything to turn it down or stop your tape. It's a dick move.
I think you're right. These are, in the sense that none of these people are perfect. Yeah. And that's what I like about them. These feel real. Like, most people, are a mix of dick and, good people at different times. And I think probably these people lean harder away from being good people, or it seems that way, because they're in difficult circumstances. This is a neighborhood that is, I guess, down on its luck. Not anymore. Fucking hell, you probably couldn't have. I don't think I could afford to walk down the streets of Brooklyn.
I know. I've watched the new Candyman.
I have not, but I know enough to know that Brooklyn's super trendy now, and super hip, and you couldn't afford. And so this neighborhood's probably been gentrified to hell and back since then.
And that sequence in it about like, hey, you're buying a brownstone in my neighborhood.
Yeah, that was an interesting scene, and that's again just showing Spike's vision was decades ahead of everybody else. Mookie in particular, I think, is a really fascinating character, and of course, in a classic sort of Tarantino-esque move, the director gave it to himself. I think he wanted to have Wesley Snipes, but I don't. Wesley wouldn't do it or couldn't do it. Ended up doing his next film, Jungle Fever. But I think Mookie's in a unique and very awkward position in many ways. Yeah, he's a bit of a shitty worker, I guess, in a lot of ways. But I think he's
dad.
Sorry, he's a shitty dad. Again, a lot of people are shitty parents, but he's in a uniquely awkward position in the sense that he's kind of got a foot in both camps. He's spread across two worlds. His financial well-being, to a large degree, relies on Sal and the pizzeria and keeping them on side. But his standing within the community, it means that he can't be too seen to be too sympathetic towards them, lest he put the whole neighborhood offside. And to a degree, he probably sympathizes with the feelings of the people in the neighborhood that Sal doesn't really cater to them, and that he's, from a bygone era, and the racism that he portrayed, less than Sal, but more John Turturro's character, is probably doesn't help the cause and puts the rest of the neighborhood offside. And you can sort of see that sequence towards the end during the riot where he sort of has that, and that, I think that's the scene, to do the right thing. Is he do the right thing or not? And what is the right thing for Mookie? What is the right thing for him? The right thing to you and me might be defend property, tell these people, try and disperse the crowd and calm it down and pour some water on the situation, and try and direct people away from destroying the pizzeria, because that would be the right thing, I guess, morally speaking, potentially. It'd be the right thing for his financial situation, potentially. But is that the right thing for him in terms of a neighborhood and he's standing in the community?
See, I think where my challenge for it comes in, yes, he does have the minimal kind of element of being in both worlds to a certain degree, but where that kind of falls down a little bit for me is he's not a good worker, and yet Sal is lenient with him. And then he does also kind of try to navigate the people that are coming in. Like, he does try to talk to Buggin' Out and the other guys about just sort of being a bit more respectful, but he doesn't really try hard in either respect. If there was development of one side or another throughout the movie, and then his decision kind of embraced where he was going, you know what, this is the right thing, this is better for my neighborhood, or for the person who is paying to give me money, but I don't feel like it doesn't give me enough of Mookie's decision there. And it's like, you're obviously looking at Wikipedia and going online and seeing all the Reddits and AMAs and all sorts of things like that. There'll be people who very staunchly fall on a multitude of possibilities. Some saying that he smashes the window because that diverts anger from Sal itself to property damage, which murder or property damage, which one's better? Probably property damage is the better one to go for, because you're not literally killing someone. Versus, should he have spoken up more to protect the person who was protecting his business in some regard? Or should he have been more of a fighter against Sal throughout the movie? There's kind of too many options for me to be able to go, yeah, Spike Lee was making a good message and Mookie's journey was valid. There's too much open for expression, in my opinion.
That's the good thing, though, right? You get to make up your own mind. You don't get handed it on a plate going, this is how you should feel about this right now, because, Sal's been an asshole all the way through the movie. Like his son, John Turturro's character, if it had been him, you'd feel good about it. Well, that guy's a fucking asshole. He's a racist and a piece of shit. And it was a piece of shit to the disabled guy. Fucking burn his business down. You feel good about that. But Sal isn't like that. Sal actually is a reasonably nice guy, but a little bit problematic at the same time. So you feel, as you say, you get to that point in time at the end. And what I think is genius about this is you feel a little bit of what that character must feel. Tiny little bit. You know what I mean? Like, you're feeling like Sal's not the worst guy in the world. He's pretty nice to some of the people in the neighborhood. It's stupid to burn the business down, but at the same time, there's some real righteous anger amongst the people in the neighborhood that, due to Sal's behavior, one of their friends has been murdered by the police, and that anger's got to go somewhere, right? And I think that's the genius of this: is that there are no easy answers in this film. There are no villains. There are no heroes. There's just a lot of bad choices, and the other choices they could have made were bad too, probably. So, I guess maybe for me, coming back to your original point about those two quotes at the end, I think what they're really saying, and I don't know that they would call Martin Luther King. I mean, was Martin Luther King confrontational? And no means an expert on U.S. race relations, so I know a little about it. What I think you're talking about there, and I haven't got decided about this, is the devil and the angel on the shoulder, right? And there's a scene in the film that almost reflects that, where Pino's over the shoulder of Sal, talking in his ear, sort of, almost like Grimmer Wormtongue spitting poison. But the angel, whereas Martin Luther King advocated a non-violent, Gandhi-esque, peaceful approach to race relations, he's saying violence is not a solution to this problem. All it does is make things worse, in his opinion. He did not endorse fighting back against the oppressors. His was, almost shamed them into. And again, if I'm completely misrepresenting the philosophy, I will apologize. But
Stop talking! You're digging yourself a hole.
Hey, I will say this: I studied U.S. history at university with a guy who marched with Martin Luther King. So, I thought that was pretty fucking cool. So when I say I have no insight, I am not African American. So, my perspective could be biased from being on the other side of the world, but I know a little about it. He was not a confrontationalist. He was all about a peaceful approach, and that to some degree worked in the South, to a degree. Whereas Malcolm X took obviously a very different approach. Well, I couldn't say that they were diametrically opposed. You can see from his quote was more along the lines of, it's not wrong if it's self-defense. Violence is okay if you're defending yourself against the oppressor. And one might say, in this case, people in the community might have made an argument they were defending themselves, but against oppressors by reacting the way they did.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, the point of a film is, what the fuck are these people supposed to do? You don't resist, you get fucking killed. Someone kneels on your neck when you're not resisting, and you are murdered. And at least until very, very recently, there were no repercussions for those people doing the murdering because they wore blue uniforms. And the other end of the argument is, okay, fight back. It doesn't take long to see what happened to the people who fought back. I mean, I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole of U.S. history and fucking civil rights movement, but there were a number of people who decided to take that literally, and it didn't end well for them either. They were shot and killed and murdered. You can look all that up. The Black Panther Party, all of that shit. It didn't go well. So I think for me, and you can interpret this any number of different ways. What are the points of those two quotes being on the wall? Of the quotes in the film, and him placing the picture of the wall of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, the disabled guy. Is what exactly are you supposed to do? Where is the option for these people to actually find their way out of the situation they are in? If they do nothing, they are murdered. If they fight back, they are murdered. And I think that is where the anger can really arise from, and the hopelessness of there's no way out of this situation, because no matter which way you do it, you're fucked.
I guess I appreciate and understand that on the grand scale in the movie. Purely speaking, in this movie's kind of narrative and message, I suppose, if you want to put it that way. My problem is that we are being presented a story where it's two things, and the thing that actually incites the riot are kind of disconnected, and then where the riot goes doesn't feel like bugging out gets a bee in his bonnet that an Italian pizzeria has Italian Americans on the wall, and he's not a rational man about it. From the moment that he notices it, he is loud, obnoxious, and borderline abusive. And it's like, okay, you know what? Maybe he has a point. Maybe where a business is should in some way reflect what is going around it, but it is a private business. So, as Sal says, you put whatever you want up on the walls where you are. That's fine. That's narrow-minded of Sal in that regard. But there was no that instantly everyone's hackles were up and they were kind of dogs at the park and just barking. And that's neither Malcolm X or Martin Luther King. The Radio Raheem coming in and being obnoxious is like, again, it's a place of business, and Sal seems to have he expresses to Raheem that he's told him repeatedly. And then Raheem gets pissed off about it. But then it's sort of like, okay, it's not exclusively in there, it's everywhere. It's when he goes past, I think they're Puerto Ricans or something. And it's like, okay, again, no one's really doing either of them. And then suddenly, boom, it's to this point where we're going to go in and we're going to be really, really mad and angry about this. And it's not, they don't try to do cooler heads like Martin Luther King would want. But at the same time, they're not exactly really defending themselves because they go into a place of business and are aggressors straight off the bat without even sort of like going, you know what, we've both got beef, which is arguably okay or not. They didn't even kind of go, you know what, let's go in, let's try and get my thing sorted first. They just went in to like 1,000 decibels, all anger, and it's like, no, it's all on the same day, guys. You're not even gonna sort of like rest it for one day to try and just let cooler heads prevail. No, and it doesn't fit for me with either of those methods. And then we get to the murder. Completely wrong. Even you hear some of the cops saying stop to the big guy that very clearly seems to just want to put a tally up somewhere for his own personal fucked up ideology or whatever. And yes, Sal's place was where they called the police because two guys were fighting, and Radio Raheem was not quitting. They're within their rights to call the police. The police are not within their rights to fucking kill someone for that. And again, it's sort of like, okay, I understand their anger, but for me, I think it just is muddy, and especially with those two quotes at the end, because for me, watching this movie, granted from an extreme point of privilege, I am a straight white Englishman who's never had too much worry about finance, and the world has been designed for me for generations. So I do not, even despite me trying to be as open and as accepting as I possibly can, I just don't know what it's like to be black, to be marginalized in any way, shape, or form, or to be oppressed by a government body because I don't have money or anything like that. It just doesn't work for me, the movie. And I feel like even if they just took those two quotes off at the end, it would maybe fit better for me.
Oh, I think that's quotes of what the film's about. I think that's what it's about, and I think we're not going to agree on this one.
But that's the interesting thing about that show, ladies and gentlemen. We don't always agree.
It has happened occasionally, believe it or not. So I'm gonna Because we spent 34 minutes on this one.
We had a bit of
It's a good conversation, but we have other things to talk about. I'm sure people will be frustrated going, no, keep arguing, get to a conclusion. We're not. We haven't even mentioned some of the other things I loved about this. The sense of neighborhood for me, I thought was wonderful. There was, when it wasn't trying to deal with these heavy racial issues, I love the conversations between the three guys sitting under the umbrella on the street, which apparently it was all improv.
I can believe.
Them just talking shit about each other. The only part of the film I thought was really weak, just to finish off from my perspective, is ironically is the relationship between Mookie and Rosie Perez. Was it Tina?
Yeah.
I kind of felt that was kind of underdeveloped. It was just kind of there, and he didn't really have time to do it justice. It wasn't terrible. It just needed a bit more love, and at 2 hours, it was just about the right.
Yeah,
anyway.
I think that I liked the development of the relationship with Demare and sister. I thought that was really cute, and it was interesting to see. I got more of that kind of confrontational ethics from those two than I did most of the rest of the movie, where he was very much just like, do the right thing, be kind, do just respect and things like that, where she was more abrasive straight off the bat every time. But yeah.
Anyway, if you've got nothing else to say in this one, you have the keys. And if you take us to Super Mario Brothers from 1993,
I'm taking us to a 1994 movie. I'm following Danny Aiello to a classic, Leon the Professional. Yes, it's one that is not an awards-winning or socially important, but my God, it's a great little movie. I haven't been back to this movie in a long time. I want to see how it stands the test of time, particularly the relationship between Leon and Matilda. See if that's more complicated than it's initially kind of was designed, I suppose. You've got some fantastic exits there. I've served up a Gary Oldman option right there.
I've never seen this,
Really?
No, never seen it. And ironically, you might say this isn't a social film or an important film, but it has a higher user rating than Do the Right Thing. This is an 8.5. Do the Right Thing has an 8. So we're back in the green territory after Monkey Bone, and we're actually number 35 of the 250 top films on IMDb. So there's nothing to be ashamed of in this one in terms of the quality of production here, and of course directed by the great
Yes, absolutely. So there's going to be plenty of interesting ways that you can go there. I figured it could be an option to go into maybe some French cinema if you wanted to as well. So there's options, but I think that was a really interesting conversation about Do the Right Thing.
Chris, the only problem with French cinema is fucking finding it here, right? It's not easy to find sometimes.
Unless it hits mainstream, like Amélie, or some of the Luc Besson things, but he's not as French as he's more sort of like just international Hollywood.
Yeah, but if it's a straight French film, it can be a little hard to find. But anyway, I'm looking forward to that. It's very available to stream in Australia on SBS On Demand. If you're not Australian, it's on all the streaming services to rent and buy. I imagine the same would be true of overseas ones. I can't help you if you don't live here.
We don't do so much of your homework, ladies and gentlemen. Let's move on.
Can we move on to what would you like to talk about next?
You know what? Let's go to something a bit more fluffy, and then we'll go back to the more serious. So let's go to Ghosted.
Sure. So this is a new movie on Apple TV. Am I right?
And
is that what it's called? Is it Apple TV or is it Apple Plus? I can't remember.
Apple TV Plus.
Okay.
Yes.
It's a combination. So this is a spy rom-com.
Falls head over heels with enigmatic Sadie. but then makes the shocking discovery that she's a secret agent. Before they can decide on a second date, Cole and Sadie are swept away on an international adventure to save the world. And if anyone is looking at this thing and hears that and just goes, sounds a little bit like the Tom Cruise, Cameron Diaz Night and Day, you wouldn't be too far off the mark, honestly.
You'd also be going, you saw Night and Day? You're the one. Because nobody went and I've never seen that. I've heard people mention it, reference to this. I'm like,
that is a movie directed by James Mangold, who may or may not be possibly trying to create an Indiana Jones movie, I think. I could be wrong with the director, but you never know.
Yeah, well, everyone makes mistakes.
And this wasn't
because this
Leopold.
film is... touche. But unfortunately, this film does not star a plucky young advertising executive.
Plucky young.
It would have been improved by a plucky.
No, but it is a plucky young farmer.
Oh, of course it is. That's directed here by Academy Award sort of winning, not really winning, but like adjacent Dexter Fletcher.
Academy Award assistant director.
He directed
Rocket Man.
Was it not? Didn't he take over doing
Bohemian Rhapsody?
I think he took Bohemian Rhapsody. I think he took over after Bryan Singer went home and never come back. If I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm fairly certain he was involved in that. But Bryan Singer is credited as the director of that. But Dexter Fletcher, well-known director, of course, starred in Press Club for many, many people who are fans of that. So it's got an A-level cast in Chris Evans and Ana de Armas, AAA cast, AAA director who's very hot, so hot right now. The writers are Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick, and Chris McKenna. Two of these guys are responsible for the Deadpool movies, and the other one, Chris McKenna, is responsible for the Spider-Man, the Marvel Spider-Man movies. So we've got a AAA writing team as well who are very hot right now and have done a lot of very successful stuff. You put that into a big pot, you stir it up for
an hour,
1 hour and 56 minutes, and you get a very, very middling result.
You do.
All of it, this is significantly less than the sum of its parts. Because you look at all that and go, that sounds like something I'd want to see. It sounds like they've really put something. We've got action, adventure, comedy, according to IMDb. That sounds exactly like the kind of people you would want involved in that. It doesn't really stick the landing, though, for a number of reasons.
What did you there's the poster for it, and it looks like the most photoshopped thing that you could possibly imagine. And that kind of fits with the look and feel of this movie. It's everything is only skin deep. There's nothing richer to it. There's nothing more intense to it. Chris Evans is a charming, charismatic actor. And he's charming and charismatic as a plucky young farmer. Ana de Armas is a great actress. Very pretty, very beautiful. She has started to develop a little bit of a taste, it seems, for some action stuff. And those two have worked together in Knives Out, which I think they had much more interesting chemistry in that movie than they did in this one.
Hey, before we go any further, I'm going to ask you to do something unusual for us. Could you read the synopsis so people know what it's about?
Yeah.
Did we? Oh, I missed that. I'm sorry. I thought we didn't. I so used to us,
ladies and gentlemen. You will forget.
Pretty much. It's. You mentioned their chemistry. There is none.
Really?
Like it really is. It's like two incredibly good-looking people who just don't seem to work. Originally, this role was written for Scarlett Johansson, apparently. And you kind of wonder if that might have worked a little bit better because Chris and Scarlett, Chris and Anna have worked together before. Chris and Scarlett know each other very, very well and are very good friends. So maybe that would have made a little bit more sense. But we watched a YouTube video of them last night doing, I don't know if you've seen them, where like They're made for GQ or something, where they call an autocomplete interview, where they actually read questions of like Google autocomplete questions and they answer them. They're kind of fun. But the two of them, I've watched a few of them for different actors, and these two have almost a brother and sister vibe in real life in the YouTube video, and I'm like, maybe that explains why there's just no sexual chemistry between these guys on screen.
And that is only worsened because every single scene that they're in together with a third party, they're saying, "Oh, you guys need to get a room." It's like,
yeah. Do they though?
It's like, does mom or dad need to come in and just box you around the ears a little bit instead? It's a different feeling.
And I feel like, and you've made a good point there. That joke is told again and again and again and again and again. So, that could work in your favor if the joke is funny.
Yeah.
If it's not funny,
it does not.
Well, then it gets a little bit tiresome. You're like, that wasn't funny the first time. It's not funny the eighth time.
And speaking of tiresome tropes that are becoming more of a common thing in a lot of action movies, unnecessary cameo.
I thought you were just going to say Ryan Reynolds. So this is unnecessary things that aren't funny in action movies.
I could have said that as well. I honestly could.
But the cameos are weird, right?
Yeah. Like, Ryan Reynolds' cameo comes in right near the end, and it's literally done for nothing but distraction. And it's like, okay, yeah, that really, you didn't need to be in there. You could have just made the movie 1 hour and 53 minutes instead. And it would have probably been a little better for that. And the kind of the running joke of the hunters, the bounty hunters of Anthony Mackie, John Cho, and Sebastian Stan coming in. I feel like I've seen that joke done 100 times, and it's been funnier, and it wasn't just, oh, there's one of Chris Evans' friends from another movie franchise. Oh, there's another one. Oh, and there's another one. Oh, yep, the first one is back. Yep. What year is it?
It just reminds you of films you enjoyed more than this.
Yes.
You know what? It felt like a film that had been written by ChatGPT. Write me a romantic comedy script where one of the woman is a spy, and the main guy is a civilian.
He's a clueless civilian.
The film it reminded me of most in a lot of ways, for strange reasons, was The Grey Man.
Not
in the sense of content. The Russo brothers did that. I don't think the Russo brothers were involved in this one. I had a quick look. I couldn't see their names anywhere. Yeah. But just that kind of like, you could see a streaming service had poured money into it. Amazing sets and locations and globe-hopping spy shit. But at its center, it had nothing. It was empty. It was no core. There was no heart. There was no love. It was just nothing. It was just an empty, soulless vehicle for 2 hours. I don't know how long The Grey Man was in this case. 2 hours for you to go, oh, I know who Ana de Armas and Chris Evans is. I'll just watch that. So, we're not setting out to make a good film. We're setting out to make someone sit there and watch for 2 hours so that they keep their Apple Plus, TV Plus subscription.
Yeah.
Or sign up for a new one potentially.
Yeah. It's a shame because people involved have got talent. There's just not. It's just, this is like, when sort of like Ben Kingsley or like Michael Madsen or like names from a past era just turn up in an Uwe Boll movie. It's like, okay, I get why you're doing that. You're doing that for the pay. This is like, okay, wait, why are you doing this? Because you're already getting the pay, And you're still having to do all the action, so it's not as if it's a trade-off of, hey, I'm getting money and I'm not having to work as hard. You're just not working as hard, but still doing everything that you have to do. I don't get it.
I have questions though about talent. You mentioned they're talented actors. I suspect you're right in some sense, but I'm starting to ask questions about Ana de Armas. Like, is she Gal Gadoting us? Like, Gal was great when you gave her material that was written within her range. Gal's range is very limited. I'm thinking of the first Wonder Woman film here, not the second one. It wasn't really her fault in the end, but anyway. When you write something specifically tailored to her skill set, which is standing around and looking hot, and not saying very much, she can go quite well. Anna's got a little bit more range than that. I quite liked her in the last Bond film.
Yep.
I thought she was really good in Knives Out, but we're talking a different level of director there. I mean, I have problems with some of the shit Ryan Johnson's done, but sorry, Dexter, you're no Ryan Johnson.
No.
And he's an incredible writer and director. So but I think also what Ryan does well is he knows his actors a little bit like Quentin Tarantino does in the sense of Tarantino fanboy hat. But the guy you get awards if you perform in a Tarantino film, right? It's a thing.
Yeah.
He knows he's fantastic at getting great performances from actors. And I think Ryan Johnson's true of that as well, which he got out in Knives Out of Chris Evans and Ana de Armas. But I don't know if she's got a whole. I know she's got an Oscar nomination, but that was controversial because a lot of people didn't like Blonde. But I don't know that she's got a lot of range. I don't know that she can pull this kind of role off. I don't know if she's much of an actor. I don't know Chris Evans is much of an actor. Films that Chris Evans been good in that weren't Captain America films. Knives Out.
Scott Pilgrim.
He was in it for 5 minutes, though.
Still counts.
He was good in Scott Pilgrim, but it was 5 minutes. I don't know that Chris is I have a slight criticism of Hugh Jackman, by the way. I don't think Hugh does many good films that aren't Wolverine films. I mean, other than obviously Kate Leopold, because goes without saying. But I don't know too many films that Chris Evans has done where he plays someone other than Captain America that he's actually been pretty good in.
I kind of liked him in Sunshine, but there's a lot of a lot of disconnects for a lot of things in Sunshine. I think that if someone kind of just remade that, maybe it would be slightly better. But he used to try a lot harder, I think. I think now he's become very comfortable, and I feel like that's a thing that I'm noticing with a lot of actors in Marvel movies. They're making a lot of damn movies. They're physically exerting themselves a lot. And they kind of go, okay, you know what? I'm just going to start heading in the Johnny Depp route a little bit of just do this thing that I know that I'm good at, that people will always pay the ticket for.
I'm being a little harsh here. The one person I thought who did stand out for me was Adrian Brody, who's absolutely kicking goals as a bad guy lately. We saw him turn up in what was Poker Face as the bad guy in the first episode. And he basically had the same mustache, I think, as he did in this one. He
just enjoys it now.
Yeah, he plays a good slimy villain, and I enjoyed him as the slimy villain in this one.
Yes.
I'm being really hard on this one, but it's not good.
No,
it is inoffensively bad, if that makes sense. I really didn't love The Gray Man. I thought that was trying really fucking hard to be something it wasn't.
Yeah.
And just to pick the one that reminded me most of it. It also felt longer than this, though it's not really longer than this.
Yeah.
So it kind of wore out its welcome. This is fairly light on its feet, if it will. So it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's just not as good as it should be, given the amount of talent that was involved in it.
Absolutely
it's
right.
Utterly forgettable.
Yep.
But if you've got Apple TV Plus, I mean, there's some good shit on Apple TV Plus in terms of TV shows. I don't know about the movie content, but
and I feel like that seems to be a common trend for a lot of the streaming services. They seem to somehow get TV side of things, but their movies, like this, reminded me quite a bit of the Six Underground, the Michael Bay, Ryan Reynolds movie. There's a like a streaming movie look to them, and it's either purposefully gritty and gradiated to make it look a little bit more rough and rugged, like the Ben Affleck something Frontiers one.
Oh, Triple Frontier,
yeah. Or you've got that like perfectly high definition, immaculate, unless it's supposed to look dirty cars, and drone usage. Lots of drone usage. It's like, okay, really? No one has scope or scale or anything that it just has a shake and bake look to it. And I don't know if it's because they kind of go, oh, well, you know what? We can film most of this using drones with 1080p or 4K cameras on them. We can get it nice and close. And we can keep it'll be really exciting to have the action go in and out and all of that stuff. And then we can just edit it together and it'll look great. It's like, yeah, not really. You still need a direct photography.
It looks okay, I guess. I mean, there's some of the drone footage, especially if you're going to the Grey Man, going back to that one, was particularly distracting because it was really over the top. And maybe in 25 years, that'll be default. We'll be used to it. But look at John Wick's chapter 4.
The one we saw, yeah.
I don't know. They all blend into one. But for all its faults, and people remember I wasn't a massive fan of it. I don't think you were a massive fan of it. But it was shot better than this. It was shot better than the Grey Man. It looked good. I mean, the photography was a lot better in that. So maybe Apple TV can go off and hire that kind of guy, because you're right. These all look the same. They feel the same. They're utterly disposable. As utterly disposable rom-coms go, this is
it's you know, that is the tag that we like to use. Cromulent.
I didn't. It's funny. Like I was like, this isn't good, but I'm not hating this. It's like, and I think sometimes you forget, even back in the 90s or something, when you go to the movies and you see a movie, like I remember the amount of times I saw films just because there was the possibility I would see Sharon Stone's tits. You know, like, or there was like, you know, like I think of a film. I'm pretty sure I saw a film at the cinema that had Armando Armas in it. What's his name? Armando Santos, sorry.
Oh.
And The Specialist.
Yeah. It's the Stallone one.
Yeah. Is it Armando Santos? I think it was. Anyway, maybe I'm not getting it wrong, but like I know you're getting it mixed up with something else. But like, and like I remember you go and see that kind of thing on a Saturday afternoon or a Saturday night because you're 15, you've got nothing else you can fucking do. And there was a chance that Sharon Stone would take her tits out. You know, like that was basically at 15 that the height of existing for me. Armando Santos was.
You're thinking of Antonio Banderas, I think.
Antonio, potentially. But yeah, it's Assassins is the fun I was thinking of. Yeah, yes. So, oh my God, the Wachowskis wrote that shit. There you go. Things you learn. And Richard Donner directed it.
Wow.
Fuck me dead. I have to go back and watch that again. But you know, mediocre films have always been around. I'm just trying to say it. And you know, the difference is now we're not paying $15 of our hard earned every time you go and see one and walk out.
We've already paid it at the start or end of the month.
Exactly. So, you know, this is in that category of film, that kind of film you would have seen in the mid-90s and gone, I don't feel entirely ripped off. And then you would have forgotten about it by the time you got home.
Absolutely agree. We talked too long about that one.
Should we go on?
Let's talk about The Swimmers.
This is a Netflix movie, or at least on Netflix in Australia. I can't speak about other territories. From war-torn Syria to the 2016 Rio Olympics, two young sisters embark on a harrowing journey as refugees, putting their hearts and champion swimming skills to heroic use. I don't know where this film's actually from. I don't know if it's a Syrian film or not, but countries of origin: United States and United Kingdom. It looks like it's officially made for Netflix, and it was filmed on location in Damascus, which is fascinating considering what's going on in that part of the world. So a bit more detail in our synopsis. Sisters Yusra and Sarah Mardini fled their home country of Syria in 2015 when their house was destroyed during the civil war. They journeyed to Lebanon and then on to Turkey, where they arranged to be smuggled into Greece on a dinghy. However, the refugees were in the middle of the Aegean Sea when the engine of the overcrowded dinghy cut out, and the pair, plus two others who could swim, were responsible for saving the lives of those on board. Just a year after their harrowing experience, Yusra competed in 2 swimming events at the Rio Olympics as part of a refugee Olympic team. That basically tells you the entire plot of the film. They start in Syria. These 2 young sisters who are being coached by their father to be champion swimmers. When the war starts, they're almost able to ignore it at the beginning, but as it gets closer and closer to them, and people they know either start dying or escaping, and as the war starts to impact their lives in a very real way, they start to think about potentially trying to escape to Europe and trying to convince their dad and mum, in particular, to let them try and escape. The idea being that once they get to Germany, they can use a family reunification law to bring the rest of their family across in a more official manner, as opposed to the manner in which they emigrated, which is an extraordinarily dangerous journey using people smugglers. Our stars in this are Sarah is played by Manal Issa. I'm trying to find the other one here. Yusra is played by Natalie Issa. So I think that I take that to mean they are actual sisters.
Guess so.
Which is, they do look fairly similar. What did you make of this? This was a really random choice one night for me, and I thought it might be an interesting one to talk about on the show.
Everyone who knows me knows that I am all over sports and all over biopics. Yep, sports. I love the sports. I have a problem with this movie, and it kind of skirts over a lot of the harrowing that I was kind of anticipating. And it focuses on a lot more of the less interesting elements for me. For example, the idea, like you mentioned before, of the war kind of getting closer and closer while they're still in Syria, in Damascus. And there's that genuinely great shot of the 2 sisters dancing at the nightclub, and then there's the shelling going on in the background.
Shells. That's incredible. That's an incredible shot.
Really, really fantastic. The juxtaposition of the light versus the light, and how that kind of image of light and dark and the blue that was used for the dancing with the water, that was kind of echoed throughout the movie in a few key moments, specifically there. Then when they are swimming across the Greek Sea, or whatever they call it. And then when she finally kind of, Uzra kind of gets over her mental block and really kind of goes in, pardon the pun, dives in deep for the Olympics team. But it's kind of forgotten for more traditional or expected refugee escape kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, yeah, but you're kind of forgetting to tell me about the kids here. I felt like there was a strange distance to the source material throughout it in so many spots. It's like the girls do really good in their performances. The story is compelling, but at the end of it, I was like, yeah, I kind of expected all of that, and I don't feel like I got emotionally invested. And they end the movie, as so often with movies based on real people, they talk about what the people are doing now and things like that. I kind of feel like it would have been a little better to mix some of that sort of thing in with the rest of the movie, and maybe it would have broken up the story. Maybe it would have made it even longer than it already is at 2 hours 14 minutes. But I feel like it might have helped give context, because I am painfully oblivious to a lot of things in the world. The refugees coming out of Syria, I have a loose understanding or a loose idea of that happening, but I don't really have much engagement for it. So kind of being told and shown intercut with sort of like news feeds of bombings that were happening and the refugees, that would have been helpful to me, and it would have potentially actually engaged me more with the parts of the story that they seem to try and be pushing. So I feel like it's a great story, but I just think that its focus was lost.
I'm not sure I entirely understand. I get you to a point. If the film is too long, at 2 hours and 12 minutes, they really needed to find 15 minutes, 20 minutes somewhere to hack out of this, because I think it overstays its welcome. And I do agree that there are parts of the film that are better done than others. That scene where that you talked about, the dance scene, was just amazing. I thought to myself, it's also incredibly unrealistic. I mean, who's going to a dance party while the city is being shelled? I don't know. Maybe that really did happen.
Travis.
The other one where she's at the swimming championships and the pool, the swimming facility is shelled by mortars, and there's like a mortar lands in the middle of the pool. That was pretty fucking cool. I think the harrowing could have been done a bit more, but I think it was very much there. Then dealing with the people smugglers in Turkey, them sitting around paying them the money, and then waiting by the water, waiting for the smugglers to come back, and with the boat, you're like, for a minute, you kind of feeling they're going, did they fucking take their money and just leave them there? What a cunt. And then the moment when they actually see the boat for the first time, and you can feel the anxiety in them through to the actual escape across the Aegean Sea. I actually found that part of I actually had to Google that to find out it was real, where the boat's engines die and they tie a rope around the girls and they swim them until fucking raft to shore. That's an incredible story. I mean, and maybe the reason you don't know much about this is all kind of happened a while ago, like the really ugly stuff, like this is 2015, 2016, when the shit really hit the fan in Syria. I remember when I was in Europe in 2016, where the place was just overrun with Syrian refugees everywhere, asking me to sign petitions about the war in Syria. A really useful tactic there was to pretend I was Russian and just go, niet.
That's brilliant. Terrible, Trevor.
Some reason they all spoke English, but none of them spoke Russian. There you go.
Because no refugees flee to Russia.
That's usually the way, yes. So I guess there was a famous there's a famous photo of a dad standing on a beach holding his dead, drowned son, which the English press covered themselves in glory again by being cunts about the whole thing. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. I expect maybe it's just me, because I just remember that photo in particular, and because I was in Europe at the time, but I remember all the people around from Syria. And then them trying to make their way across the continent. That's pretty harrowing, of them being ripped off and potentially ripped off.
They kind of it felt like they kind of flick booked it.
I think there's a lot of content there, and I don't know, given how long the film was, I don't know how much more we could have got of that. I mean, maybe they could have done a little bit less of the Germany stuff. But at the same time, I kind of felt the Olympic stuff was rushed. Like, kind of the big point of it, the real redemption arc of this is she made the Olympics.
Yeah.
That is an amazing story, but they really kind of yada 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 the Olympics at the end, like
Yeah.
to the point where they have a race she swims in and apparently wins. I mean, I don't know if that was
Yeah, they
true
don't.
or they don't tell it is I'm assuming that's not a medal event. Like it must be a. I know a little about the Olympics. Like I watch it like when it's on because Australia does well in the swimming, so you're kind of exposed to a lot of that. There are usually heats, and you can win a heat without winning a medal. But we didn't actually get any kind of explanation about what this race was that she was swimming in. And I found that personally, I have one of the small problems I have with film is I found out a little deceptive of the filmmakers
Yeah.
and kind of a trope that they, they overcame all the things and they won the race. And I'm like,
Yeah.
fantastic. I mean, yes, that's an amazing story, but what did she just win? Was it a medal event? Well, I don't think it was.
The heat. Yeah, apparently it was at the Rio Olympics. Mardini won a 100-meter butterfly heat against 4 other swimmers with a time of 1 minute 9 seconds .21 and a rank of 41st among 45 entrants.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But isn't it a little bit deceptive to make us feel like maybe she won something?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who these other people were. Like, were they had they seen pools before?
Yeah.
There was a famous story in Sydney of a guy named Eddie the Eel, who was from, I want to say, Equatorial Guinea. And he actually became quite famous because he had never swum in an actual pool before, I think, or at least not in an Olympic-sized pool. So his time in whatever event it was he did was ridiculously slow, but it was like one of those spirit of the Olympics kind of things. So but anyway, it's off topic. That never happens. I liked this film quite a bit. I thought it was pretty good. It told an interesting story about a topic that we have forgotten to talk about, and we've just the media has moved on to other things. You're talking wars. We cover the Ukraine war now. Even then, we don't talk about that much anymore. So it would have been 2015. So it would have been 7 years ago this kind of thing was happening. And I think it's kind of cool that we're shining a light on this and actually telling a story about what that journey's like. Because there's certainly a lot of people. But the other scene that really stood out to me was when they finally get to the island of Lesbos, I think it was, the Greek island, and they walk off the beach, and there's that sea of fluoro orange life jackets, like just a sea of life jackets to give you a sense of a scale of a problem. And seeing how the people on the island reacted to the refugees, wouldn't even give them water. I think it's helpful to be reminded of what these people were escaping or what they went through to get there, and that no fucking person in their right mind would get on a leaky boat and go across the fucking Mediterranean Sea unless they were running away from something really fucking scary.
Yeah. And I think that's my problem with it overall. This, I don't think should have been a movie. I think this should have been some kind of miniseries instead to give it the time that it needed to actually tell more of that story and give more. It's a grueling journey that these guys went on, and there was a feeling of flick book with these interspersed with these amazing single shots that were poignant, but there was nothing around them, and it didn't go deep enough for me, and so I'm just left kind of going, that's a really interesting thing. I want to learn more. I'm gonna have to just learn more myself. I would have liked to, because
what more would you have liked to have learned about?
I would have liked to just. I feel like I'm very distanced from the sisters overall, and I think that it's a great opportunity to actually talk about some of the other people that were coming as well, like the mother, who was ended off heading off to the UK. I would have loved to see more of her journey as well, because I felt like I got invested in her character more than the sisters, who were very reserved and bottled everything up. And maybe that's how the the sisters really are in real life, and it's a good representation of them. But I felt like, okay, important things are just being flicked through, and I'm not getting enough time to actually explore the effects of this on the girls. And they're supposed to be who I'm with.
Okay. Well, again, I think we're going to go on the record. So I don't think we're going to agree on this one. I think this one's pretty good. It can be quite harrowing at times. Be prepared for something that might be a smidgen too long, and the ending might be a bit tropey.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of just going to go and point and say I disagree with the point at the end you said about the traditional ending of this is where the girls are up to now, because I think that's the film understanding exactly what people do these days. As soon as the film's over, I'm grabbing my phone and Wikipedia reading these people and going, did this really happen? And
no, I liked that bit. I liked the fact that they very poignantly made it, this is what's happening, and the things that the girls went on to do was important, and particularly for Sarah. And she's facing 20 years in prison for human trafficking and things like that. So I'm like, wow, okay. This is more of an interesting expression of do the right thing than what was in do the right thing for me. And that is like the other part of the story that I would have liked to see, because you get this Hollywood ending of them frolicking on a beach and everything's right with the world, and then you get these very quick sort of like, she's now doing ambassador work, and she's probably going to be spending time in prison because she was trying to do the right thing. So like, no, keep telling me that story, because they're interesting. They've now really gotten interesting, and I want to see that.
As I said, I think definitely I can accept that the ending is a bit tropey.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess the idea is to leave you feeling slightly good about a pretty horrible story. Anyway, it's on Netflix. If it sounds like it's going to be interesting to you, it is on Netflix in Australia, at least. By the looks of it, as far as I can tell, it was a Netflix production. So I think you should be able to see it on Netflix. Hopefully, most places.
Mm-hmm. Now let's get on to the final segment of the show.
Big Browsburn. What have you got this week?
I've got first one. I'm taking this one straight away. This is executive produced by the Russo brothers. Citadel.
Oh yes, on Prime. This is the guy Richard Madden, right?
Yes. One of the Game of Thrones people that went on to be one of the MCU people that went on to be, wasn't he in things?
As I always say, the handsome man who turns up occasionally, and I don't know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably Game of Thrones.
So, here we go. 8 years ago, Citadel fell. The independent global spy agency tasked to uphold the safety and security of all people was destroyed by operatives of Manticore, a powerful syndicate manipulating the world from the shadows. With Citadel's fall, elite agents Mason Kane and Nadia Sin have their memories wiped as they narrowly escape with their lives. They've remained hidden ever since, building new lives under new identities, unaware of their pasts, until one night, when Mason is tracked down by his former Citadel colleague, Bernard Orlick, who desperately needs his help to prevent Manticore from establishing a new world order. Mason seeks out his former partner Nadia, and the two spies embark on a mission that takes them around the world in an effort to stop Manticore, all while contending with a relationship built on secrets, lies, and a dangerous yet undying love. Yeah. You know how we were talking about Ghosted having a very generic kind of look? This does too. And it's got Richard Madden, who people will know from his famous death in the Red Wedding. Priyanka Chopra Jonas,
was in the Eternals.
Yes, and she was also in the fourth Matrix movie.
And she's married to a Jonas brother.
Yes. Stanley Tucci, who I always love, but I don't know why he's here. The rest of the people in this, I don't really know. It's a collection of quintessential English women who are powerful, dominant, and scary, and European men with beards. This is supposed to be an action drama thriller, and the opening sequence of the first episode takes place on this extremely luxury train that seems to be slightly more technologically advanced than what we actually have in the real world. So technology is a little bit more advanced than what we're used to. And these two agents are there to try and stop a sale, but it turns out to be a double bluff, and they've fallen into a trap by the eponymous Manticore, who have only just suddenly surfaced to take down Citadel in one fell swoop. The action is generic. Richard Madden was mildly okay as, I think his name was Icarus in The Eternals, and Priyanka Chopra Jonas was serviceable as a very pretty agent who can hold herself in a fight because the stunt people around her know how to take a punch. Stanley Tucci is the man in the chair, as is joked about by Ned in the Spider-Man movies, and that's pretty much his role. Everything else is like, okay, there's lots of tropes here, ladies and gentlemen. I've watched the first 2 episodes. They're available on Prime, and they start kind of fudging around with 8 years ago, now, 8 years ago, now, and then they do the... I don't know why producers and executives and directors let this sort of thing slide. But at the end of the second episode, before it even gets to the skip button, it says, coming up on Citadel Season 1. And it kind of spoils the whole damn show. It's like, well, yeah, it's a spy show where 2 people have had their memories wiped. Blatantly, there's going to be red herrings and spy v spy and all of that sort of stuff. But did you have to confirm it all? Did you really? And it looks like somehow they've managed to generate a cheaper-looking version of Black Widow. I don't know how they did that. This is very
it costs a lot of money, I imagine.
It certainly has the presentation of it. There's the opening sequences are kind of along the lines of like, oh, this looks like an HBO sci-fi show kind of first season of Westworld sort of thing. It's like, oh yes, it's taking itself seriously, and there's a lot of simile on that note to the way that they presented The Peripheral, which took a nosedive fairly quickly, and I can't recommend this. This is a very, very, very soft browse. Being burnt and you can smell the smoke. This is toast that's going beyond my taste buds. I'll go back for episode 3 because I have Prime. Why not? But I'm not invested in this. I don't care about Citadel and Manticore. I don't care. The bad guy has already, in her own words, diminished her threat level because she says in episode 2, I'm just the broker, and if I don't deliver, someone's coming after me. It's like, well, we know she's probably going to die at the end of season 1, and then someone's going to say, I'm coming after you, Mason Kane. Come on. Mason Kane, name generator can come up with something more interesting than that.
It's the worst name since Holden Ford in Mindhunter.
It's just bad. There's nothing. This is trading on, much like Ghosted. It's trading on the names of some of the people involved and the people behind it. But it's sort of like, I wonder how much interest the Russo brothers actually had, and I am very questionable about the Russos, and I always have been, because they created Welcome to Collingwood before they went on to do Community and things like that. I don't know if if they may very well be Gal Gadoting us as well.
I don't think you can when you've made films as good as they have. Maybe we're just coasting, right? Someone offered them a lot of money, and hey, well,
movies. They made Captain America: Winter Soldier, and then at that point, the machine of Marvel movies was very much in position, and they were just running a track that was already laid for them.
That's a bigger conversation. My first entry this week is Fired on Mars. Fired on Mars is an animated show.
Okay.
From, I believe, our friends in the United States might find it on Max, not HBO Max anymore. It's just Max, right? What a fucking stupid decision that was, by the way. The HBO brand is gone. Like, it's just Max now. What the fuck?
Max. Yeah.
Stupid.
Because they're taking Max.
It's an animated show available here in Australia on Binge. Jeff Cooper has to reinvent himself after being fired from his position in the space startup Marsley. With no chance to return to Earth, he has to find again meaning in a dangerous alien but familiar corporate landscape. Okay. So he has relocated to Mars as a graphic designer to work for the startup Marsley.
Okay.
He's fired very early on and has no way of actually going back to Earth. And as it says, he has to find meaning in his new existence on Mars. This, in terms of voice acting, involves Luke Wilson plays Jeff Cooper.
Jeff Wilson playing Luke Cooper.
Luke Wilson, of course, of Idiocracy, amongst many other things. And a few other names you might see pop up along the way. It has a very strange vibe, this one. It is exceedingly dry.
Yeah.
Like, so fucking dry. Dry than fucking Mars. Like, really dry. But, and you're kind of sitting here going, I don't know if I like this, but I want to watch another episode. I don't know if I like this, but I'm going to watch another episode. It has a Office Spacey vibe, which fits with the fact that, of course, Luke Wilson has worked with Ken Judge before, and you can sort of get that. I mean, he's not the man behind it. It should know. It's created by Nate Sherman and Nick Vokey.
Nate Sherman did This Is 40, which makes me very suspicious straight away.
Involved in Bridesmaids to some degree. Nick Vokey, I'm just going to check here, see what they're behind. Not much else that I've actually ever heard of. So they're fairly new to the game. But it kind of has the animation style is more in line with something like Ugly Americans or Big Mouth or something like that. But it's not fantastical like those shows. I kind of liked it. It's, like I said, if you like, very broad, laugh out loud comedy, like something like Family Guy or South Park is more your jam in this space, and you find stuff like I said, Big Mouth, or fuck me dead. What was the other? BoJack Horseman, a little bit too esoteric for you. If you're a BoJack, if BoJack Horseman didn't do it for you, then steer clear of this one. I don't think you're going to enjoy it. But if you do like that kind of sort of weirder, edgier sort of animation, then maybe you will enjoy this. As I said, very droll, very dry, very much a commentary on startup culture in the 21st century and that sort of thing. But I think I like it. I'm going to put it as a browse, right in the middle of a browse category, in the sense that, like, I haven't rushed back to watch another episode, but the next time went over, like, the writer strikes on, you've seen, so stuff that I watch on the regular, like Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, which I love that show. That's probably not going to be on the air anymore. So,
certainly not anytime soon.
So the next time that there's no John Oliver to watch, I might watch an episode of Fired on Mars, which I think is the definition of a browse.
Okay. All right. What was the other thing? I have a binge browse burn for video games. yesterday saw the release of Redfall on Game Pass on I think it's on PlayStation as well.
It
It's
is,
on
yeah,
Steam,
everything.
and it's by one of the
Bethesda.
studios. Yes, Bethesda, and particularly
Arcane.
Arcane, who did some of my favorite games, the Dishonored series. This is a team-based vampires kind of squad sort of action thing. I haven't had a chance to play with any friends yet because I'm a loner. There is no option to play with bots, which would have been a nice little addition to at least get you that idea if you wanted to play on your own. It's got a look of an Arcane Studios game, so sort of like the size of things, kind of like my hands generally just look too big for the rest of my body. It's a little bit of that. You've got 4 different people that you can characters that you can choose from, and they've got different abilities and sort of like the different functions in the team. And you find yourself going through. It's an interesting environment. I've only spent maybe half an hour in it so far. Very basic kind of typical kind of controls right now, but there is some kind of skill tree that I haven't got to unlock yet. But it seems like fun, and it's on Game Pass. And if you've got Game Pass Ultimate, you can play it on PC, which from the early reviews is probably where you're going to get a slightly better, more stable performance.
Are you sure? I've heard exactly the opposite.
Well, it's apparently being review bombed, with people playing it for less than 10 minutes and giving a review right down in the toilet sort of thing. So I don't know. It was playing fine for me on my gaming laptop. It looked fine, but then again, I am not a particular sucker for graphics. It's not on the same level as going for that hyper realism that you get in a lot of PlayStation exclusives, like The Last of Us or God of War or things like that. But it's got a specific style. It's like looking at Legend of Zelda, which the new one comes out week after next. That's got a very specific art style that's somewhat timeless. Arcane Studios have got a particular kind of look to it. Everything from Dishonored and Deathloop, they've got this kind of veneered sort of finish to them, because a lot of their games are designed to sort of like, okay, I've got these interesting skills. How can I break the game? And that's half the fun. But because I haven't got to those skills yet, it's very generic right now. So this is on the lower side of browse right now. There's nothing particularly exciting right now for me to go in, but I have got a couple of people that I know. Patrick and Kinjin are probably going to be joining in to play that, so we'll hook up and I will come back to you later on with how it's supposed to be played with people.
I would enjoy it too, but because I have Game Pass as well, but I don't know.
You're in the middle of moving studios, sir. You don't have time for games.
I should note this has been decidedly negatively reviewed. It has a 63 on Metacritic. And despite your success, what I've heard to date is it has been an absolutely trash PC port. Like, that's just what I have heard people saying is really pretty bad. And Bethesda have come out and said it's because it doesn't work well on high-end PCs. So,
maybe that's why it's working fine on the game.
That's why it's working fine for you. My final Binge browse burn, because we're getting a little long here, is the new series on Prime, Dead Ringers.
Oh, yes. I said I was going to watch that, but I totally didn't get around to
it. Unacceptable. Starring Rachel Weisz. This is a limited series based on the film from the 80s, directed by David Cronenberg of all people. I don't think I've seen the film, but after watching the first episode, I watched the trailer because Jeremy Irons in it, and it looks absolutely bonkers.
Yep.
And then again, it's David Cronenberg, so
Yep.
Enough said there. Of course, it's going to be bonkers. The guy's nuts. The Mantle twins, identical from head to toe, are on a mission to change the way women give birth. Now, not being able to comment on the original film, I believe the identical twins in that film were played by Jeremy Irons. They've been gender swapped here to being women, working as I don't know exactly what, working with women giving birth. Obstetrics is the word I was looking for. And they are both played by Rachel Weisz. One with their hair down most of the time, one with their hair up most of the time. And they're very different characters. And that's a really nice little way of us being able to tell the difference between the two of them, which one we're looking at any given time. Beverly and Elliot. So they're the same character names as the original film. They work in a hospital, I think, and they're looking to set up their own sort of clinic to help women giving birth. It's sort of the whole shebang, so that they can improve the way that women, deal with pregnancy and give birth. It's pretty full on. It is R-rated. So if you are squeamish, this is not the show for you. There are some fairly graphic scenes early on of birth.
Okay.
Which probably shouldn't be gruesome, but maybe that's the point because it is shot in a way that they are fairly shocking. And you don't normally see that kind of thing. They'll sort of cut away to the woman's face screaming, but no, you get the full Monty in this one.
Yeah. Okay, that's everything you're seeing. Yep. Okay.
And that's a lot of blood. And so it's not pulling any punches. I'm putting this in the soft binge category for me. The first episode is really quite good. Takes a little while to get going with exactly what the story is going to be about. The character work is really great. The writing's great, but sort of spending a lot of time faffing around with the characters being the characters, basically. It actually necessarily takes about 30 or 40 minutes of a 1 hour episode to get to the gist of what it's actually going to be about.
Okay.
And, maybe I'm being a little bit hypercritical by criticizing it for that. But the point is, come on. I already like these characters. You don't have to work at that anymore. Can you please just tell me what your story is? I haven't seen the film. Basically, the twins are seeking investors in the first episode to start to build their own clinic for pregnancy. Elliot is trying to woo TV star Genevieve. But what's fascinating here is that her sister actually says, "Would you like me to get her for you?" Because Elliot's kind of the reserved twin. The Beverly's a really gregarious, outgoing one. And she goes out in the guise of being Elliot to woo the woman that Elliot is interested in as a gift to her. These are some really fucked up people, and I like it. I like it a lot. They're absolutely said the film, the trailer for the Cronenberg film looked bonkers. These girls are bonkers. And Rachel Weisz is having a fucking ball. You forget what a great actor she is. We saw her famously in the Death Machine episode if you go back. She is part of a chain movies a long time ago. She's in one of your favorite movies, of course, The Brothers Bloom. And she's absolutely sensational, at least in the first episode. I'm only one episode in. I think there are, I'm not sure exactly how many episodes there are. I'm guessing about 6 episodes. There we go, in season 1. It's taking on some challenging topics, and it's doing it really quite nicely, at least in the first episode. As I said, if you are squeamish, go elsewhere.
Okay. Interesting. And that, well, on a squeamish note, brings us to the end of the show. A little bit longer than 1.5 hours that we're trying to aim for these days. But still, I think we had some good stuff. And we had we had debate on 2 of our topics today. So this week we talked about our chain movie of the week, which was Do the Right Thing, and I have chosen for us to follow Danny Aiello to Leon the Professional, directed by Luc Besson. We talked about Ghosted on Apple TV Plus. We talked about The Swimmers on Netflix. Do the Right Thing. That was not streaming anywhere. You could get it on Apple, Amazon. You can buy it and rent it from places. So if you want to watch that, please do so. And we had our Binge, Browse, Burn. We talked about Citadel. We talked about Dead Ringers. We talked about Fired on Mars. And we talked about Redfern. Redfern? Redwing.
Redfall.
No, Redfall. There you go. I'm invested. But that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on Facebook, on Twitch, on YouTube, facebook.com/Frybrain Productions, twitch.tv/Armchair Producers, youtube.com/Armchair Producers. Don't forget, you can always join us live on any of those platforms. Jump into the chat. If you've got any recommendations, tweet them out to us. Twitter for this wonderful fellow this side. I learn my left from my right. Evil Trav. Myself, the Fry Brain. Until next time, thank you and good night.
Good night.